Alright, we're live with another session of James and Jay Dissects The Walking Dead. Today we'll be talking about the second half of the third season. James, so let's go ahead and jump right on into this. What were your overall impressions, I guess, of it?
So good evening, everybody. But the second half was stronger than the first half. So this is when I rewatched it. I found a lot more things that I liked about the season, but I also found a lot more, things that were incomplete. So, the enthusiasm is there. Rewatching the episodes, and it's very enjoyable because the show is great in itself. So even the slow episodes or even the down seasons, they're still enjoyable. But in dissecting this and comparing it to the other seasons, and especially comparing it to season 7, which a lot of people don't like so far, you kind of have to look at the positive and negatives of each season. And season 3, while it has several positives, it has several negatives. So the one thing that I did take away from the second half was it did get stronger, but it also left a lot more unfinished or incomplete storylines, and it didn't tie things together like it should have. So I mean, I think that they could have tied more things together. Like, they made a webisode for this season. I encourage everybody to go and watch these webisodes. So season 1 was Torn Apart. Season 2 was was Storage, right? Cold Storage, or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And now season 3 is The Oath. And you'll notice that the actress in season 3's webisode is from Scary Movie. It's the lady from Scary Movie that they always gets beat up and is real stupid. So at least you get that, you get that little Easter egg there. And then they show you, of course, the green Hyundai Sonata, or the green Hyundai, whatever car that was that they were driving in season 2.
Yeah.
You get that Easter egg. But and they also take you back to the hospital, and they show you who put the sign all dead. Dead inside. Don't open, dead inside.
Yep.
Sign on the hospital doors, and how it got locked up and whatnot. So check that out. My opinion would be, if they were going to do a webisode, they should have done it on Penny. They should have done it on Dwayne. We'll get into that. Or they should have done it on maybe the governor's backstory, but they chose to go a whole different direction, which, again, it's fun to watch these things, but you're tying up loose ends from other seasons, and you have so many loose ends in season 3. But anyways,
a lot more filler.
Yeah,
it confuses, I think, everybody.
Yeah. So
one thing I did notice is I enjoyed it too more watching it again. And one thing Kelsey and I talked about was, I think when you're waiting for the episode for the entire week and then it disappoints you, it leaves you just wanting more, and it's just like, this is it. Like, this is what I drove over to my friend's house and and looked forward to and built up everything, just to be let down.
Yeah, we touched upon that. We touched upon that for season 2. Just like we said, I think a lot of people thought it was slow because you had a whole week of anticipation, and then if you thought that the season 2 had filler episodes, you got one of those slower episodes. It kind of like you had such a build up so much anticipation for the episode, and then you get hit with what you thought was a slow episode. And like Jay said, they used to come over our apartment, so they would drive over, and we would see the previews and say, oh, this is going to be a great episode. And at the time, it seemed like it just slowed down too much for you to wait a whole week. But when you watch it over again, the pace is continuous. So
and like James and I will sit there, we'll talk about it, like, oh, this is gonna happen, it's gonna be so good, and then you're just like, oh, that's it. Okay.
But the second part of season 3 kicks off with the episode The Suicide King. This obviously picks up where the season 3 mid-season finale left off, where Merle and Daryl were pitted against each other to fight in the arena. Um, Obviously, Rick and Maggie decide that they're going to go back to Woodbury. They send Glenn off to wait because he's injured from being battered and beaten by Merle. They send Glenn to wait, and Rick and Maggie, along with Michonne, actually just Rick and Maggie, they go back to rescue Daryl. The fight is kind of, Merle, kicks Daryl around a little bit, but tells him, "Don't worry, there's a plan. We're gonna get out of this, little bro." And they get away. Rick and Maggie, they end up saving Daryl. You actually see Maggie kill her first human being in this episode. That's a little trivia thing. She makes her first human kill, and it's the girl that Andrea taught how to shoot a bow and arrow. And you also see, Daryl get his crossbow back. Daryl and Merle escape, and then you have the reunion between Merle, Glenn, Maggie, and Rick. So
you just talk about how crazy that is.
Yeah, so you got a guy who causes this whole shit. Merle basically kidnaps Glenn and Maggie and nearly kill them. They're going to be executed if it wasn't for the the rescue mission of Rick, Maggie, and Oscar, and Daryl. So it's basically you got Merle Dixon has orchestrated this kidnapping and possible execution. He almost gets Maggie raped. He beats up Glenn and tries to kill him with a walker. He's basically got the information he wanted about his brother, and Maggie and Glenn were disposable. So now when they reunite on the road in front of the woods, Glenn is like, "What the fuck? I'm not going back with this guy."
Yeah. Like, why are you bringing him?
And then even Michonne. Now you got Michonne. He tried to kill Michonne too. So you have 3 people who Merle literally tries to kill. And you have Daryl, who is the peacemaker, but he's also that's family. So he's telling the guys, if you don't want my brother, you don't want me. This is my blood. I can't leave him. And it forces Daryl to make the decision to venture off with his brother and leave the group behind. And there was a very big moment in the show where Glenn says to Daryl, "You're my family." When Daryl says Merle's my family, Glenn says to him, "You're my family. This is family." And it makes Daryl realize that, hey, look, these people are family. And it starts to show you the full it's full circle. It's come full circle. Daryl was an outcast, and now he's family. So when you fight together and you lose people together and you survive together, you become family. So that was a key moment there. This is also an episode where Andrea continues to act stupid.
Yep.
We talked about this in the last episode where Jay said, when Andrea saves the governor from Michonne, her first reaction isn't, what the hell is a dead walker doing on the floor? Why are there all these heads, including the 2 heads of the pets? Why the hell did she stab you in the eye? What the hell is going on? Why are people getting killed out in the streets?
Like,
What I'm saying?
How are you going to side with the person you just met for a couple of days versus the person you survived with for the past 7 months?
And it just shows you that her character is just all over the place and just very emotionally unstable, because she doesn't make any sense at all. And they turned this strong comic book character into an idiot. And when you're so invested in reading the comics, and again, this is actually a good thing if you didn't read the comics, because you get to see Andrea as her own character,
Yeah.
but the show is based on a comic book, and a lot of the viewers were the comic book readers of The Walking Dead. So when you take this strong character who is still alive in the comic books, and you turn her into a mindless idiot that makes emotional, irrational decisions, and nothing she doesn't use logic in anything that she's doing. It frustrates you, and it says, what the hell did you do to this character? She's a complete moron.
Yeah, and we've been looking forward to her, to see
Yeah.
like when she's gonna make the turn or what, to rejoin the group and when she actually become this, almost leader, of the rest of the group. But just
And between her and Lori, they could have made a sequel to Dumb and Dumber themselves. Just idiots all over the place. So anyways, she goes back. She asserts herself as kind of like the governor's, the substitute governor, while he's continuously losing his mind after all the events that have happened to his town.
Mm-hmm.
So she asserts herself as this kind of leadership, personality there in Woodbury. Toward the end of this episode, you get to meet Tyrese and Sasha. Tyrese is a comic book character. Again, they remixed this character, and I didn't like the way they remixed Tyrese. He was a very strong character in a comic book. He's kind of, one person I know said that he's, a teddy bear at heart, and that's not what Tyrese was in the comic book. He wasn't a teddy bear.
He was beast mode going out there. He was Rick's right-hand man.
Yeah, and I think that they made him, a gentle giant in the show, and a very sensitive man in the show, which is fine. But when you have the complete opposite and such a stoic character in the comic books, it doesn't really fit. And a lot of interactions that he had with the other survivors, felt more forced and didn't feel natural compared to what they did in the comic. And I didn't understand that either, So, you got to meet Tyrese. Sasha's not in the comic book. That's different.
Yeah.
Tyrese is accompanied by two other survivors with their mother. They obviously get attacked,
right?
Huh?
Was it Alan?
Alan is his son.
Yeah.
And they basically get attacked in the woods. The mother dies. They make it into the prison. They're saved by Carl, who again is wandering off by himself. But I guess nobody's telling him to stay put anymore since his mom died.
Sure.
So,
OFP.
they come into the prison. Carl does a smart thing and isolates them. And then we get into the next episode. Now you have Merle and Daryl off by themselves. The group is bringing back Michonne. The group is also coming back to the prison to meet Sasha and Tyrese. And you have the governor and his his new mentality, which is slowly going psychotic. And they followed it up with another episode called Home. And the governor is testing Andrea because he doesn't trust her at this point. And he tells Andrea that they won't retaliate. He ends up telling Andrea that the people from the prison are the ones who attacked them. And he ends up, Andrea says, he tells Andrea he's going to, he can't let this slide. He has to do something. And Andrea says, hey, look, don't do anything to them.
Yeah.
And of course the governor sends his men out there.
Yeah.
And this is the first true human group that attacks the survivors. And the attack is pretty good. I mean, I actually liked this attack. You got Rick, who's continuously going crazy at this point. Rick
they
is
probably could have finished out the group right there and then. I'm surprised they
didn't.
did.
I think they just wanted to send a message, and I think the governor, later on in the season, the governor has one objective, and that's to get Michonne. Killed his little girl. He mutilated him. So his whole message was to say, I could kill you all, but I just want Michonne, and that comes to fruition later on. But in this episode, you got Rick going crazy.
Yeah.
He's seen Lori
going outside the gates now.
Going outside the gates, and at this point, the governor has attacked. He has attacked the prison. He shoots Axel in the head and kills him. They shoot up the whole prison. They don't kill anybody else except for Axel. But they do drive a ice cream truck through a Piggly Wiggly truck. I'm sorry, and that's an Easter egg to the comic book. Piggly Wiggly truck through the front fence of the prison, and the Piggly Wiggly truck is filled with walkers. This causes survivors to kill the walkers or be killed, and Rick is still stuck outside of the prison. He's inches away from succumbing to walkers, and he's saved by Merle and Daryl. The group reunites, and they let Merle and Daryl back into the prison. And
you kind of have to after
he saved Rick's life.
And you do not realize, like, wow, we're gonna need all the help we can get. So
and a big part of this episode showed the relationship between Merle and Daryl. Big Brother basically telling Daryl what to do and telling him we could survive without him, and basically tells you like they had planned to rob the survivors in season 1. It finally comes out the main objective of Daryl and Merle. And Daryl basically, you find out that Daryl was abused as a child in this episode, and Merle is still playing that abusive big brother that thinks he knows everything, and he doesn't realize that Daryl is a supreme tracker. He tells him their location. Merle tells him no, he's crazy.
I like that.
So it's like everything Daryl said was correct and everything Merle said was incorrect, and Daryl slowly is leading Merle back to the prison on purpose because he wants to make it work with everybody, and he has 2 sets of family now.
Yeah.
So all ended up
the title home.
Yep. So that was a decent episode. I didn't like Suicide King. I like this episode better because it did start the conflict between Woodbury and the prison. So, like I said, this is the first time you have humans attacking humans. Not just what's his name? What the hell are those 2 guys' names? I can't even remember them now. Tony and Dave were the 2 humans with Randall and the other 2 guys that ran away, and one-on-one with Shane and Rick. You literally have a group attacking a group in this season, and this is the first time. So I like this episode, but still, it,
and it's 2 established groups. It's not people just on the road, crossing paths. Like these groups, they can't just keep going their own way. This is gonna be a fight to the death. Someone has to give in.
So while this episode did pick up a little bit, it still wasn't. It hasn't gotten there yet. And follows up with I Ain't a Judas. This is when Andrea finds out that the governor attacked the prison. This is basically when Rick has gone crazy in this episode and kicked Tyrese and Sasha out the prison because he keeps seeing Lori's ghost. So now, and then you have Milton, who's developing Milton basically shows you what the governor is doing by, collecting walkers. Milton is also making creative defensive weapons against the walkers. So you have a couple of different, kind of storylines and neat things that they're doing here. Of course, Andrea wants to go to the prison and talk to them and basically see if she could be a peacemaker and form some sort of treaty between Woodbury and prison. And the governor says, okay, you can go. Milton goes with you, and en route, they meet up with Tyrese and Sasha, who just came from basically being kicked out of the prison. And, Andrea sends Milton, Tyrese, and Sasha back to Woodbury. And she uses Michonne's technique where she creates her own walker pet
Yep.
To help mask her smell so she can get to the prison unscathed. She makes it to the prison, and she
does not get the warm welcome she expected.
and it's rightfully so.
Yeah.
The governor, you got Michonne there, so Michonne is the one that saved the governor. I mean, Andrew's the one who saved the governor from Michonne. So you have Michonne there who's telling the prisoners, "Hey, look, I could have killed this guy. He saved his life, and
your buddy over there stopped me.
And basically Andrea's blaming the prison for attacking Woodbury, and is basically again acting like an idiot because these are her friends. You survived with these people. You survived with Glenn before you even survived with Rick, and you got Glenn here. He tried to kill Glenn. Glenn is saying, "Hey, he tried to kill me," and Andrea is still saying, "You guys provoked him to do this." And then when all logic has failed her, she's blaming Merles. Oh, Merle's the one who started it.
You took him in. It's just like he's Daryl's brother.
She's an absolute idiot, and she just, the prisoners don't trust her, but still showing that they're her friend. They give her a car to go back, and they say, "Hey, look, you can kill him." Carol tells him, sleep with him, give him the best sex he's ever had, and kill him in his sleep.
Yep. And
she goes back, and she actually has a chance to do this, and she doesn't do it.
She does the Andrea thing.
She sleeps with him.
Everybody.
Gets her rocks off, and then she walks across the scene half naked. And then she just looks at the governor with a knife and then goes back to bed. I'm just like, this is crazy. So, again, this was a filler episode. I didn't, again, it's kind of building up to what's to come, and I didn't really like this episode that much. This is one of my least favorites of the season. I think I was more irritated by Andrea's actions, and they just weren't realistic to me. I think that I think that all cooler heads prevail and common sense will take over eventually, but with Andrea it's like there's none to be found, and I just didn't like how they made her character so moronic.
And I guess a quick question: how far would the governor have to go for Andrea to turn her back on him?
And that's going to be answered soon, because you're going to see how far he has to go for her to say, fuck it, the prisoners are right. Yeah. So next episode is Clear.
Right, so they go from the bottom up to the top, huh? This is one of your favorite ones.
Holy shit, and you know why, right? I mean, if you watch the show, you already know it's because Morgan's in this episode.
Yeah.
So Morgan's
big fan
on
Lenny
this.
James.
Yeah. So Morgan's on the streak of every other season. Season 1 and now season 3. And he only is in one episode in season 1 and he's in one episode in season 3. But obviously Rick, Carl, Michonne, Rick says we have to get weapons to fight these guys. Because they have some firepower. So he decides we need to go back to the police station. We can clean out the locker and we'll be set. And, he goes on a mission with Michonne and Carl. He purposely takes Michonne with them, and he tells Carl, hey, we got common interests with this lady, and this is also a test to see if she's really with us or if she's a spy or a traitor. So
kind of test her out. It's like
test her loyalty,
if she's really part of the group or not.
So this was considered a filler episode, but this was probably the most artistic, and this was the best episode to me of the season. This and episode 4, Killer Within, 1A, 1B. So you basically get Killer Within was the action-packed episode, which was great in that sense. And this episode was the perfect filler episode and the perfect, rising conflict episode, the beginning of the action to come. So, and it had Morgan, so it had a fan favorite that came back surprisingly, and it was just intense. So you have Rick, Carl, Michonne make it back to Kings County.
Yeah.
And they find that the police station has been raided. So Rick tells them, "Hey, look, there's guns in bars, and I made the permits out to these guns. You know, they're still there. People won't know that they're there because they're hidden."
Yeah.
That message kind of comes out in season 5 from Glenn. He says the same thing. So, they're kind of recycling things that they've done in season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Or every season is replaying, things that they've said, theories that they've had.
Little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, breadcrumbs. Perfect, Jay. That's perfect. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. I'm just word vomit all over the place. But so basically, Rick and Michonne go deeper into Kings County, and they see that there's a bunch of traps and there's a bunch of signs that say clear everywhere.
And that's got to be a red flag, man. If I start saying that stuff, I don't know if I'm just going to kind of waltz down the middle of the street.
Yeah, and Michonne even said to him, "Something's not right here. Let's go."
Yeah.
And then the signs start to get more cryptic. It's saying, "Turn back now. It's your last chance." Mm-hmm. So as they get deeper into the town, and walkers are impaling themselves on spike traps, all of a sudden a figure appears on a roof and shoots at them and tells them, "Put your weapons down, and then leave." Of course, they don't. They ambush the guy on the roof. Carl shoots him as he's attacking Rick, and they find out that it is our beloved character Lenny James, and it's Morgan. And so Rick,
that's 2. Well, kind of 3 reunions. I mean, you have Merle coming back this season, and now you got Morgan coming back, and he kind of had Andrew come back to the group too.
Yeah, so you had 3. Perfect. It's 3 reunions. So that's one thing about season 3 that I liked, was at least they had these reunions, and even Merle reuniting with Andrea in the beginning too. So even Merle with Glenn and Maggie as well. So you have all these different reunions going on. People, survivors from season 1. But Morgan, this episode was all about Morgan.
Yeah, and there's kind of a contrast. Merle, he's still Merle. Andrea, she's still pretty much Andrea. But Morgan, he's
not Morgan.
Yeah, he turned a dark turn.
Morgan has gone absolutely batshit crazy here. He is no longer, a peaceful, father trying to survive. He's turned into a crazed maniac psycho killer. And he basically, when they subdue him, they shoot him through his vest. It knocks him out. They find that Morgan has more than enough ammunition for them. And Rick even said that he's been busy. So you look at all those traps, and you look at all that ammunition he has. Morgan has killed a lot of people. And once Morgan comes to, this is where the episode gets really deep. And Morgan comes to, and he doesn't realize who Rick is at first until Rick says, "Hey, look, it's me." And Morgan recites what Rick said. "You told me to turn the radio on every day, and you'll be there at dawn, and you weren't there." And he starts to get angry and said, "You weren't there for me." And Rick's trying to explain to him, "Hey, look, man, I got pushed back." And he's like, "I don't care. You could take your radio." And, Rick starts to look around the room, and he notices a sign that says, "Dwayne turned."
Yeah.
And so, this was incomplete to me. I mean, they tell the story of Dwayne, how, Morgan, why Morgan's crazy. We were scavenging, and we always were scavenging. And, of course, Morgan makes a choice not to kill Jenny in season 1. Well, he tells Rick, "My decision not to kill Jenny came back to haunt me because we're scavenging." And Dwayne, Jenny walked up on Dwayne, and he turned,
pull the trigger.
I couldn't do it, and she killed Dwayne. Yeah. And then I saw red, and I killed her. And everybody turns, and he starts going crazy, becoming a lunatic again. But you can
kind of draw a parallel there to Rick's situation right now. He's not quite the Morgan's level, but after losing Maury, he's on that slope downward.
He's almost there, and he was slowly becoming Morgan. He lost his wife, just like Morgan. He almost lost his. He feels like he's going to lose his son. He's he's sliding down that slippery slope, just like Morgan did. But seeing Morgan kind of gave him the ability to step back and say, "Wait a second, I can't do this. My son is still alive."
Yeah, it's kind of like that Christmas Carol, like Ghost of the Future. There,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's like, geez, that's my future if I don't change something right now.
And what was really brilliant about this episode, and Gimple wrote this episode, and this is what made me really respect the direction this series was going. Gimple showed that he was deep, and he showed that he can make a hell of an episode. He can write, and it was actually the best written episode since the last one, which was last one he did, which was um not Pretty Much Dead Already. Yeah, Pretty Much Dead Already, and then Better Angels. So he did those two episodes, and those two were phenomenally written episodes as well. So you're starting to see this new writer who's been behind the scenes, and you're starting to see his work a little bit, and that comes into play in season 4, 5, 6, 7, because they gave him the job. But anyways, back to this episode. Rick tries to tell Morgan to come back with him, and Morgan says, "Hey, look, you guys are gonna die. You're getting a lot of guns, Rick."
Yeah, you guys aren't protected.
You're not trying to protect.
Yeah.
You're
Your
gonna
mom's
die.
Protect your wife.
Yeah.
You're all gonna die.
Die.
I'm not going with you.
Yeah, and he says it. The good people like you die, and the bad people die too. But the people like me, we roam the earth.
Yeah, the weak inherit the earth.
We inherit the earth. So he's basically still crazy, and he's telling Rick, "Hey, look, man, I'd rather stay alive and clear. That's my job. Whoever tries to come here and try to take this place from me, I'm gonna kill him."
I wonder how many people he actually has killed.
Well, it had to be a lot, because Rick said it was way more than what the police station had in terms of weapons and ammunition. So and he even said he's been busy.
Yeah.
And you look at
kind of ask a question like, are our heroes just heroes, or could they be the villains too?
Exactly, and I said it before. When we talked about who we would be, there are no good guys and bad guys anymore, and I think that luckily we don't have to deal with zombies. But anybody who wants to survive, if you just want to die when this first happens and you're going to kill yourself, or you're just not going to want to survive, then you could be a good guy. But if you want to survive and live to see another day, and you have that in you, you're going to have to make choices. And the world no longer plays by the same rules as what you're used to. And as we said before, these characters had to shed the skin of their past lives to survive another day. You can't be who you were. And that's the whole point of the show. The governor was not who he was before. Rick was not who he was before. Yeah. Morgan was not who he was before, especially not now.
Yeah.
So, but they try to convince him to go back to the prison. He says no. But what happens is they actually start to trust Michonne, and they accept her as one of them when Michonne goes and gets a picture for Carl of the family.
I mean, you fast forward, to the recent episodes, the Carl Michonne relationship.
Like mother, stepmother, son.
Yeah, this is where it builds right here. Before, at the start of the episode, Carl's like, we're not going to bring her with us back, right? He's just like, we're going to leave her, right? She's not part of us.
Yep, and she ended up being part of it. And
in the end, he changes his mind. He's like, she's part of us.
And then another big Easter egg here was at the beginning of the episode. A survivor with an orange backpack was trying to get the attention of Rick, Carl, and Michonne as they got stuck in mud. And obviously he couldn't catch up to him, and they drove away from him because they don't trust people at this point. Yeah. And then at the end of the episode, he's absolutely ravaged by zombies. He's torn apart, and they basically pick up his orange backpack because you have to scavenge whatever supplies you can. They take that backpack, and if you look forward to the rest of the seasons, it's the same orange backpack that Glenn uses with his prison gear. This orange backpack has made it throughout The Walking Dead. So this orange backpack this is where the start of this orange backpack was this episode here.
That bothered me, man. That choice.
Yeah, I remember you being a little bit perturbed by that.
That still does. Like, after rewatching it, I was like, man, you guys just killed that guy. Yeah,
and this shows you that, again, that the characters are slowly becoming too far gone. They're losing their sense of humanity.
This guy's desperate. You
Yeah.
know, he's running around. He's got pots and pans on his backpack.
But you got to look at it. They can't trust anybody. You couldn't trust Shane.
Yeah.
You can't trust Andrea. Couldn't trust Andrew the prisoner. Look at all the people that they've lost because they've trusted people.
But he's almost ready to trust Morgan, and
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
because it's nostalgia. You
yeah,
have that
yeah.
relationship. Um,
I
and
don't know,
and
man. That situation there was,
this was before they ran into Morgan, and then you also look at Morgan saying you can't trust anybody.
yeah,
You can't trust me. You know. But anyways, that was tied for first favorite episodes of the season was Clear. Um, Followed up with another good. I mean, you could say it was a filler episode. A lot of people will say that, and I agree. Arrow on the Doorstep, another one of my favorite episodes. I absolutely love this episode. A lot of people say it's slow, but it was almost like a declaration of war here. It was like two generals
hmm
coming together to see if we can make a peace treaty. But at the end of the day, we're gonna have to fight and kill each other. So it was like the drama was there, the filler
yeah.
episode was there, the
It's like a
background.
it's like a weigh-in of
Yeah,
like
it
a
was.
heavyweight title
It,
belt. You know, there's just kind of
it's
sizing
two
each other up,
fighters. Yeah,
flexing.
and you had this great confrontation,
hmm
but it was like a cold war at this point, but it was also like gentlemen. It was like gentlemanship. It was okay. This is, and it showed you that both of these characters are from England. So this is what they do. I mean, they're gentlemen in England, and they say it when you hear them speak about things that they are accustomed to. They talk about gentlemanship and talk about the art of war and how to go about it like gentlemen.
yeah,
And this was their way of tying um, England into the show, and they came in peace, kind of in peace. Andrea got them together. You start to see the generals from both sides. You had Herschel with one leg, you had Daryl, and then on the other side you had Martinez and Milton.
yeah,
So you had the strategists on both sides, and you had the assassins. So you had the cavalry, and you have the strategists, and then you have the generals, and then
yeah.
you
The
have
right hand
Andrea.
man there.
You have Andrea who put it all together, but she's just basically the idiot. So
Yeah.
they talk about it, and the governor tells him a little bit about Penny, and again, incomplete. Basically says, I if if I don't do something, it's a failure to my people. He tries to dig deeper. He shows you that Andrea basically told him about Rick's situation, and when she went there, Andrea basically,
Yeah.
like a
Wow.
little snitch,
Yep.
basically a spy, told him that Rick lost his wife in the prison. Shane slept with his wife, and he's taking care of a baby that might not be his.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Uh,
extra information there. That's not just,
too
hey,
much.
they're doing okay.
Told him
It's
about all the guns that they got back. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what the hell are you doing here? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, like she just
Um,
chose her side.
yeah, and you know, Rick comes up with a plan. Let's leave each other alone, and the governor says, "No, I want Michonne."
Yeah.
And Rick has to contemplate it. The governor has a lot of men. The governor even said, "I could have killed you." And Rick's like, "Oh well, I'm not a governor." And at that point, Rick starts to realize he is the governor.
Yeah.
you know and they come up with some deal where Rick hands over Michonne and everything goes away. But it's not to be, because you know that the governor is psychotic, and the governor is power hungry, and this is just a ploy to get them, get what he wants and still destroy the prison. He still wants to reign supreme over this land. So, and then you have Merle back at the prison, and he doesn't trust what the governor's saying because he was the governor's right hand man.
He
He's seen
knows.
this before. He's seen the ambushes. He's killed people in the ambushes.
Yeah.
So, he's trying to get along with Glenn, and Glenn and him get into a skirmish, and you start to see Carol grow a little bit of a backbone here, saying that if you hurt Daryl, I'll kill you, and a little bit of storylines here and there. It was another good episode to me. It just had a lot, and I think it also had just it. it had Glenn and Maggie, Glenn, getting the ring from Maggie. It had a lot of deeper storylines that were going to going to continue on in the rest of the seasons. But again, it didn't talk about Penny.
Yeah.
It kind of talked about the governor losing his wife. It didn't really talk about, Milton's background or Martinez's background. I mean, they hinted on it, but they didn't really talk about it.
So in other words, it laid down the groundwork for a lot more and really tied up nothing. So like, we
Exactly.
left with just so much more to deal with.
And it was like it's such a downer because it's like now you're into it and you're saying, wow, yeah, what, maybe he's going to talk about Penny, maybe Martinez is going to say what he did before this all, and blah blah blah, blah. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I did like the little bonding like everybody was doing on both
Yeah,
sides.
like
It reminded me like kind of like the Christmas stories you would hear like when, like in World War II, where the Germans would come over to the Allied side and they'd share, like a drink and some cigarettes,
well,
and then the
it's
next
just
day
like
just go
it's
back to
great
war.
fights in the Civil War. It's a
Yeah.
civil war
Mm.
between humans. Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee, they met, after the war, to discuss what happened, but they were gentlemen about it. They shook hands, they met, and they said, okay, this is how it's going to end. But they kind of touched base on that. It's down in the South, and you got these two generals, which are humans, which is they share a common basis. They're humans in a world amongst the dead.
Yeah.
So it's like a civil war of human beings. And they come and like they lay out the groundwork of a peace treaty, and it just doesn't go that way. And when he comes back, one of the greatest songs of the series was "Warm Shadows," and it showed the split action when the governor goes back to his people and Rick goes back to the prison. And the governor says, "Get all the men ready. They're gonna bring Michonne, and they're gonna have Rick. Maybe Merle too. We're gonna kill them all."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Milton doesn't like it. Now this is when Milton starts to say, "This guy is fucking crazy." Crazier than crazier what I thought he was. And Milton has just formed that relationship with Herschel, and Milton starts to see that these people are people. And when the governor says he's just going to kill them all, Milton kind of takes a step back and says, "I'm not a monster. This guy is crazy." And then Rick goes and he tells his group, he's going to try to kill us anyways. We have to fight him, And he tells his lieutenants, he tells Herschel and Daryl,
Mm-hmm.
they want Michonne, so that sets up for another good episode. Not the best, but it's getting a little bit better. Sets up for episode 14, which is Prey. And this episode, I liked Andrea in this episode, but again, she's just an idiot. So Andrea, Milton basically tells her the governor is going to kill all the prisoners, even after he promised to make a peace treaty with the prisoners.
Yeah. And now
Andrea
she feels guilty.
Now
Come
she
on.
feels guilty, and she starts to see that he's setting up a torture room for Michonne, which is a comic book reference. He tortured Michonne with a whole bunch of stuff.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, that's
you
a
also
horrible
you also
feud.
seen him with the chains that in the comic book he chained Michonne up and raped her with. So you kind of got a hint that he was going to do this to Michonne in the show. Like they tease it again. Andrea sees him becoming psychotic with all the torture instruments. She points her gun at him through a blind window, and Milton stops her. She decides, Milton tells her, you need to go to the prison and tell them what's coming. The governor basically, finds out her plans to go to the prison, and he tracks her, or this is why the episode is called Prey. So he hunts her, and it becomes a really good cat and mouse episode where the governor is a lot of tension. The governor's chasing Andrea. They go through a warehouse. I thought that was really good. The suspense was there. The governor showed his psychoticness. He's whistling. He's tracking his prey. Andrea does a lot of crafty things to get away from him, including setting him up to die by opening a door so walkers can get him. It just doesn't work out the way she wanted it to because he ends up catching her at the end.
Yep,
Um,
last second.
at the last second, Rick is looking through his scope of his rifle. He sees something, and he in his mind he thinks he's seeing Lori again. So he's dismissing it, but it's really Andrea being captured by the governor. She's taken back and she's taken prisoner. And the governor lets Milton know, hey, look, I know it was you who burned up all my walkers. I know it was you who told Andrea to go back to the prison. You're next. And a lot of suspense there. Great song at the end of that one too. Wolf in my yard. It was unbelievable, the tension and the cat and mouse chase between the governor and Andrea. This was a strong episode as well. Another one of my favorites, not my favorite, but another one of my favorites. And then comes my, I guess if 1A, 1B was episode 4 and 12, this would be the second, second place. Because This Sorrowful Life, the pendulum episode to the season was Merle taking it into his own hands to deliver Michonne to the governor.
And a good performance by Michael Rooker the entire time.
He might have gotten the MVP of the season here. This season was about Michael Rooker to me. This was Michael Rooker's season. He focused on him, and as we said, once you get a little bit of hope to you, get a little bit of moral compass to you, die. And finally, Michael Rooker becomes, he starts to see. He's been an asshole his whole life. He tells Michonne, hey, look, I've killed 13 men or all these men. And Michonne looks at him and goes, how many did you kill before you met the governor? And Michael Rooker looked at her and didn't know what to say. So, he decided to take Michonne to the governor so he can kill the governor. And it was a suicide mission of his. He knew he wasn't going to survive it, but he knew that if he did this, it would give the prison a chance because there was no way in his mind they could beat all those soldiers.
Yeah.
So Michael Rooker, he takes Michonne, he takes her out on a joyride, and then he decides last minute, hey, go back. I'm going to finish this off myself. You go back and tell the prisoners to get ready. Basically, Michael Rooker orchestrates the walker trap. He takes out a whole bunch of the governor's men with walkers, and he scopes some of them. And just as he's going to shoot the governor himself, Alan's son steps in the way, and he shoots him instead of the governor. Yep. Leads to the governor's soldiers finding him in his outpost or wherever he's shooting from. They beat him up. The governor, takes over from there, kicks his ass a little bit, bites his fingers off, stabs him in the side with his own knife, and then Michael Rooker. Another one, from season 1, it was another shout out to season 1 where he says, I ain't gonna beg you. He told God himself, I'm not gonna beg. I ain't begging.
Yeah.
And the governor says, no, you're not gonna beg me. And he shoots him in his chest and lets him turn.
I guess one thing we were talking about was, why couldn't he go back? And I thought that he knows deep down he's not a good person, and he can't get along with his group after what he did, the past he's had.
There's no turning back.
He can't change who he is, and this is just like a fleeting moment where if I don't do this now, we might all die anyway.
Yeah.
And if we do survive, then it's only a matter of time before I disappoint everybody again.
And then he basically said that he has to do this. This is the only way to basically make it up to his brother. And he basically has this almost like a passing of the torch to his brother and saying, hey, look, man, you don't need me anymore. You got this. You become the man that you become. It's time. You can walk on your own. You've already proven it. You don't need me screwing your life up anymore. So he goes and he makes a valiant effort. He takes out a whole bunch of the governor's men. And at the end, the governor is just he has too many men. He kills Michael Rooker. Daryl goes and he tries to track his brother and Michonne. He finds his brother dead, and a great moment there where he puts down his Walker brother. And they did a great job with the makeup on a Walker Merle. I thought he was the best Walker survivor that they made, and ended with Daryl killing Merle, and it was a sad moment, but it was a great moment. So that was, like I said, you got those two strong episodes in 4 and 12. This one was right there with them. I watched this episode over and over and over again. So it was Michael Rooker's season in my mind. It was his season. It was the season of Michael Rooker. He's the cause of everything that's happened this season. He kidnapped Andrea Michonne at first. He kidnapped Maggie and Glenn. He lied to the governor. He basically went to go kill the governor. It's him who has every single step of the way has basically started this whole war by himself in a weird way. And it ends with him trying to end the war. It's almost like, I started this mess, let me finish it. And
yeah, like you said, it's consequences. If they didn't leave him up there on that roof, what could have happened now?
There you go. And these are the choices that, and again, this is Gimple and Kirkman trying to show you that every single choice you make is going to bite you in the ass at the end. It's going to bite you in the ass at the end. And they followed this up with Welcome to the Tombs, and I think that this was more of a, Andrea's going away party than it was a season finale. And I think that this was one of the weaker season finales that they had in the show.
I agree. I think the last scenes were...
A lot of people will say, oh, you had a death with Andrea. No, this was one of the weaker season finales in the show. You had such a build-up to this, the governor invading the prison. And, Andrea's in, he captures Andrea and he kills Milton, and he pits Andrea in this room where she has to escape handcuffs before Milton turns. And can she do it in time? But meanwhile, the governor's on his way with all these soldiers to the prison. They have all this ammunition, all this firepower. And the only thing it ended was Andrea not being able to get out of the room without Milton biting her. Mm-hmm. And the governor attacks the prison, doesn't kill anybody, and Glenn and Maggie shoot at him about a couple of times, and they all run away.
Yep.
What? It was such a letdown. It was like, come on, seriously?
Yeah, it's like, where are they going? And it's like, okay, they're going to turn back.
Oh,
nope.
Man. And it just... Andrea dying was good because you didn't see it coming. You thought that she was going to make it away. You thought she was going to kill Milton, mm-hmm. and she was gonna, make it out, and she'll be back with the group. But the
question about like where would her arc go though from there? Like she failed them so much. She failed everybody.
And now she's also responsible for Merle dying in a weird way. She's responsible for a lot of different things going on here. So now the group goes back to they go back. They find Tyrese. And they basically, Tyrese tells them, hey, look, Andrea left. She was on her way to see you. And the group goes back, and, Glenn, Michonne and Daryl say, hey, there was a torture room where they kept Glenn and Maggie. Let's go check there. They find Andrea, and of course she's burning up. And she has a great line from season 1 again, and she tells I know how the safety works. Yeah. I mean, she's gonna take herself out. She's gonna do. She got herself in this mess, and she's gonna get herself out. And then, of course, Andrea kills herself because she's bit on the neck. You can't cut the wound away there. She's already infected. She dies, and the survivors go back to the prison. This is when Carl kills an innocent boy. He drops the mic on Rick as well. Tells Rick, hey, look. You got Mom killed, Merle died, you need to do something rather than just run.
Yeah, he's like, I'll tap through those sends. I had to kill him because he could have came back and killed somebody else. Yeah,
so it's like, you had that. You had a lot of build-up. You really thought that Daryl was going to get his revenge on the governor. And it was such a letdown.
And then all you have is the governor killing his own people.
Yeah.
He's got the infinite ammo auto headshot cheat codes in.
And it was just, he killed his people, and it just showed him being psychotic. And we talked about this. Is one of the questions. We'll get into this. One of the questions was how many men and women, or how many humans did the governor kill? Because it seemed like he killed a lot. Yes, he killed a lot of people. He
Yeah.
killed, he basically killed the pilot. I think that he shot down the plane, so he killed everybody in that helicopter.
Yeah.
That's that plane. So he shot down the
Yeah.
helicopter. I think he killed the pilot. He killed all the army men. So you're up to about maybe 20 people. He killed everybody who was in his aquarium. All the heads in there, he was responsible for their deaths.
Probably
They
close to like
had
2 dozen in there, right?
yeah, so you're up to 40, 50 maybe. Um, then he goes and he kills Merle. He kills um he kills Milton.
Mm-hmm.
He kills Andrea, and then he kills Axel.
Yep.
So now you're like 55, maybe 54, 55. He kills everybody in his in Woodbury, all those soldiers that went with him except for Karen. She was the lone survivor.
Mm-hmm.
So now he probably killed 60, 70 people total. But I think they try to quantify, his psychoticness by giving him a lot of, kills that weren't really necessary. I think the biggest kills he had was Andrea, Milton, Merle, and that's it. Everybody else to me, I didn't care about.
Yeah.
He killed 3 humongous characters.
It's just his entire Woodbury group is just like, why?
Yeah.
Just like, it doesn't make any
trying
sense to me.
Trying to quantify it. They're trying to show that he's just this big bad villain, but in reality, he didn't. He killed 3 people in my mind. It was Andrea, Milton, and Merle,
Yeah.
and
or even like the reserves or the National Guard. At least it's like saying, "Well, this guy is crazy."
Yeah,
he'll kill everybody, and that's just like what we know about. He must have encountered other groups where he did the same.
Yeah, so we don't know how many people Negan killed. He probably killed much more. You see all those things. So people were like, he probably killed much more people than Negan. No, Negan's kills are they're great. They're like, you don't know his past, but if he built up such an army and he has a wall of walkers that used to be prisoners, he's more ruthless. So
look at the female group there, Oceanside. They
exactly.
all had husbands, fathers, or sons. They're all dead.
Yeah, so I think that they're trying to quantify his psychoticness instead of just making him psychotic. They try to exaggerate how psychotic he is instead of doing it more creatively like they did in the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't pan out the way they wanted in the season finale. I don't know why they split it up the way they did. We'll get into season 4 in our next break. But this one was a lackluster finale to me. They did kill off Andrea, which was a moot. It was a silver lining because I'm glad that they did it.
Yeah.
But again, overall, it's still a great show. But it just, it didn't complete a lot of storylines. It just left a lot open, and it just had so much potential. I mean, you don't know what happened to Penny. You don't know the governor's complete backstory. You don't know a lot of different things. It just didn't complete stuff for me. And it just, Tyrese and his sister, you don't know, and didn't really explain too much with them. And, Milton, and I just like, wow, man.
Yeah. This is no conclusions to anything. Nothing ever comes full circle.
No, and even the season finale was incomplete because they had to finish it off the next season. So it's like, wow, and what I'm saying? What are you actually trying to get? What are you trying to tell us? And why are there so many holes here in the storyline? But no, overall they did have some promising episodes, and a big thing that they didn't do is they didn't show what happened to Dwayne. At least show us something. At least have a flashback. I mean, you don't have to have the exact same character, but show us the back of Dwayne. Somebody as similar to him. You have stunt doubles, and then dress up a kid that looks like the actor that played Dwayne and put him in zombie gear. And
just have him wander around the street somewhere if Morgan couldn't kill him.
Yeah, so. Just the back of them. You don't even have to show anything else. So, again, just a lot of holes in the storyline at this point, and they veered away from the comic book a lot. They remixed too many characters, and this was actually the end of Mazzara, his era. This was it. They actually changed the showrunner, and it became Scott Gimple after this point. And the reason why was this: they wanted to go a different way, and they wanted different creative thinking. Basically, saying you screwed this shit up.
And I can't blame them. I mean,
and
Kirkman should be different, but
yes,
not completely different.
and that's the whole point that we said before. It's not supposed to be exactly the same as the comic, but it can't venture too far from the comic. And I think it went too far away from the comic with the remix character of the Governor, the remix character of Andrea, the remix character of Tyrese. You got 3 strong characters here.
And
you
you got
remix,
Murrow, which wasn't even in the comics, and he's the front runner of the
yeah,
season.
and Daryl, who's not in the
Daryl.
comics, he's the
So
front runner of the season.
what's going on?
You
They're
made
like so much.
Tyrese noticeably weaker than his
Mm.
sister Sasha. You know, you got Maggie and Glenn, in here. You got a crazed Rick, and then he's not crazed, and it was just, to me, it was too much remixing. Storyline got remixed a little bit too much, and it just strayed away from the comic. And slowly, as the next 2 seasons, it started to come back. So,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, this was my least favorite of the seasons. Still a great show. Still, compared to other shows, it's still solid TV to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Things they could have did different. We said it already. Differences from the comics. I think we touched upon it.
Just about everything. It's so hard to compare them just because everything's just so.
Well, just the 3 main characters we said: Governor, Tyrese, Andrea, completely different.
Yeah.
The conflict between Governor and Rick, they never had a meeting together. Governor chopped off Rick's hand in the comic book. He didn't do it here. Governor raped Michonne. He obviously didn't do it here. Governor did not fall in love with Andrea. Obviously, he fell in love with Andrea in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Prisoners were different. They were remixed a little bit. Axel was where Tomas was. He was the crazy one. He was more of a psychotic killer. He's more of a he was like a serial killer, and he was.
Well, there was Axel was the heavyset biker.
Yes, I'm sorry. Who was
it was Thomas.
Thomas instead of Tomas. There you go.
Yeah, yep.
So he was remixed. That was remixed. The prison itself was remixed. There weren't as many characters in the show that there were in the comic book. Herschel didn't lose his leg. It was too many differences. Beginning of this season, Maggie in the comic book tried to kill herself, and Glenn saved her. In the show, she didn't even, we didn't touch upon that. She didn't try to kill herself. Milton didn't exist in the comic, but it was Dr. Stevens who was, the faithful doctor who, not faithful doctor, but the town's doctor who, basically was rebellious against the governor. Milton wasn't rebellious until the end. They actually, again, they had a Dr. Stevens. It was a black woman. Mm-hmm. It was just too much. It was too many remixing. There was a guy, Schumpert was, he was in the show. It wasn't in the comic books. Instead of that, it was, it was just too much.
So, Martinez's storyline was completely different.
Martinez, to me, I was incomplete. He was such a strong character in the novels, in the comic book. Martinez was a huge character, and again, they made him like, they put him behind the scenes too much. He was more compassionate in the comic books, and he didn't buy everything he didn't agree with everything the governor was doing, but in the show he was an asshole, and he basically did everything the governor said. Yeah. Again, Penny's story was told in the comic books, wasn't told in the show, which is a disappointment. A lot.
Yep. But like you said, it could have been better, I think. Doesn't mean it wasn't good, but it definitely could have been better.
Yeah. As much as we love season 2 after rewatching it, Can't say the same for season 3. I did like it more when I rewatched it than I did originally. I think it's because of what Jay said. You don't have that gap of time and then hit you with a disappointing episode. You kind of can just, you can watch it, consecutively on Netflix or on DVD, and it just, goes right into the next thing. It's like a conglomerate of episodes. So, other than that, it's set up for season 4. It had a good ending, I guess you could say. All the residents of Woodbury moved into the prison. And then Rick no longer saw Lori's ghost, so he vanished. He vanquished his ghost. Yep, he found inner peace. So you have some sort of hope here for season 4. It's the first, to me. It's really a peaceful ending, and it sets up for a big time jump. We'll get into that when we review season 4. But again, check out episode 2. Check out episode 8. The mid-season finale was okay, but nothing to cry home about. Actually, they had 2 really lackluster finales. They had a lackluster mid-season finale and lackluster season finale.
Yeah, I agree. I think something like the mid-seasons, were better.
Yeah.
Were the peaks, and then they dipped down.
Yeah. So. And that makes sense because episode 4 was great, and then episode 12 is actually the 5th episode of 12. Episode 4 and episode 12, which you were right, the mid-season finale. They were great, you know. So I guess they replaced the finales. I don't know.
I don't know what to think it was. Hey, let's just jump into some of these questions, huh?
Go ahead, man.
The first one, with some of those notch marks of the governor's book. I know one thing we were talking about was not, I guess, explaining the governor's mental state. And I thought they were going to with these notch marks that Michonne found inside of his little notebook there. So what's the importance of those? What's the meaning of those?
Well, again, they're trying. Again, they don't complete this storyline. They don't complete this ideology of the governor's right now. They his daughter's name is Penny. So obviously the notch marks in his book are made with the edge of a penny. Not the edge or the circumference of the penny, whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like what he does to focus, to concentrate. And again, this is kind of an Easter egg to the comic books because the governor will go into his room, his aquarium of heads, and he would stare at the heads so he can basically accept the horrors around him and not be scared. So what he does here is he uses the pennies almost to focus, and it's a penny like his daughter, and he just makes marks. It's almost like a psychotic routine that he does, and it just shows he's going crazy. He's making thousands and thousands of lines with the pennies, and it just shows that he's just not right.
Yeah.
So it's just a sign of psychoticness here. It's just like something a crazy person would continuously do. It's just, I'm just gonna make marks with pennies. It's almost like he can't let go of his daughter, and it shows. And it's too many marks to be days because he had pages and pages and pages full of it. It's too many marks to be survivors or people he's killed. It's just, it's just a routine. It's just a ritual he's doing, and it's just a mark of his psychoticness at this point. And that's the only way to explain it, because it shows when Michonne sees it, is she sees that he's crazy. Only a crazy person would do this, it doesn't make sense. So,
and that's just the start of it. Then she has to find the heads and the aquariums and his dead daughter. So
yep.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
Yep. So that's what he did there. The second question, which is a good one, was sorry, I gotta get the damn question again. We already talked about it. Was how many people the governor killed. That was the second question. Third question was you know, what happened to Penny and what happened to Dwayne. We explained this about Dwayne. What happened with Dwayne was Morgan and him were scavenging. Morgan was in the basement. Dwayne was at the top of the stairs. Uh, Morgan's wife, Jenny, his undead wife, Jenny, followed them. They showed this in season 1. She kept following everywhere they went. She followed them into the house. Dwayne spotted her. Morgan was at the bottom of the stairs. Dwayne pointed his gun at Jenny. Couldn't shoot him. Couldn't shoot her.
Yeah.
Jenny bit him. That's when Morgan saw red, killed Jenny, killed Dwayne. We assume he killed Dwayne and went crazy. So Dwayne died from being bit by his mother that Morgan never killed from season 1. So it was a choice that Morgan made, cost him his son. Penny, the governor, Milton asked the governor, what would Penny think about you being crazy? And the governor said she'd be scared of me, but she'd also be alive. And
it's a valid point.
He didn't go into what happened to her. Even when Andrea asked him who is she, and he didn't specify what happened to her. We can assume that in the comic book she dies from a group of bikers. They invaded the dwelling that the Blakes, Penny, and other survivors were in this farmhouse. And this group of bikers came and they took it over, and Penny was shot in an escape, and she died and turned. So we can only assume that either she was bit or she died of natural causes and the governor couldn't let go. We don't know. They didn't explain this at all. They didn't hint on anything. They just showed him combing her hair and a piece of her scalp fell off. So you don't know what happened to her. You can only assume that she died somehow and turned, and the governor didn't put her down. But in Easter egg, another question was, what was the point of showing the governor's eye at the end in the season finale? Well, if you go back to the first episode of the season, you saw the eye of the walker turning 360, and then Michonne killing Rick killing the walker.
Yep.
T-Dog killing the walker. And then at the end, you see the governor. So it basically shows you that, these are the enemies of Rick. This is what he has to deal with. And it shows you that, it just showed you, hey, look, you got to deal with the dead and you have to deal with the living. So it was a great shot that they did there, and great comparison of threats. And you obviously seen what happened. Both the walkers and the humans killed the survivors. So it was a great shot there. So those were good questions. We have a lot more questions.
Yeah, we'll get to those. So next week, rather than do a recap of certain seasons or anything like that, we're going to just do a Q&A, and so we can catch up on some of this backlog. So if you have any questions, get them into us before our next episode.
Yeah, and make them. Well, we're going to answer questions for seasons 1, 2, and 3. And we'll answer any questions you have. Maybe we'll answer some questions about season 7, the first half, because we're going to go over that too. Because next Monday is our last show before we start up reviewing the episodes for the second half of season 7.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, let's see how it turns around, because, like I said, man, here goes a question I will go over here. It says, you state that The Walking Dead season 7 premiere wasn't the highest watched episode of the show. What was the highest watched episode of the show, and how many more viewers watched that episode than they did the season 7 premiere? Great question. So I'm going to go back, have it. I'm going to say 17.29 million watched No Sanctuary, and that was season 5. So let me just make sure I'm correct. I'm not just pulling that out of my ass. No Sanctuary, 17.29 million US viewers watched. The second highest season amount was 17.03 The day will come when you won't be. So 250,000 or so more people, or 287,000 or more people watched the season 5 premiere than the season 7 premiere. And that says a lot because both were cliffhangers, but one cliffhanger was done brilliantly and the other cliffhanger was done moronically. Season 7 episode 1 should have, I still stand by this, season 7 episode 1, and it went from 17 million down to 12 million in one episode. 17 million to 12 million. And even season 5 episode 2, they only dropped about 2 million. Season 2 from episode 7 dropped almost 5 million viewers after the premiere. So it just showed you that people, they weren't happy about the finale. They weren't happy about the cliffhanger. But yet, you had a cliffhanger in season 4, and season 5 premiere was the highest watched show in the history of the series. So if you do it right, you get results. If you do it wrong, you piss people off. So it's like, that's the answer. I know we spoke about it. Those were the top 2 most viewed episodes in the series, was season 5 premiere and season 7 premiere. But again, we'll go over all of this stuff. We're going to have question and answer. I have about 15 questions.
Perfect.
Season 1, 2, and 3 we're looking for. And if you have anything about season 7, we're going to jump right back into it. And we'll be going from episode 9, called Rock in the Road for season 7. And we're going to see how this plays out, man, because the one thing I have noticed, and I'm looking at it now, is Scott Gimple only wrote one episode this season.
He's been busy, so
yeah. Season 7 episode 1, Scott Gimple wrote, and he hasn't exclusively written any other episodes. So could be because different people are writing it. But again, they have to pick it up, man.
I agree, but we'll see.
Yeah. So
we'll see. Well, we'll talk about more about that next time, along with the questions. So get those in if you guys can.
All right.
Also, check out our charity down below, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. If you guys can join it, please do. If you can't, just share our videos, click on our ads. Every little bit of helps, and every money or all the money we get from these videos goes straight to charity. So any little bit does contribute. So we're gonna say, James?
Yep. Before we go,
yep.
The second part of my playlist. So there's 42 shows to watch. You can break those up however you want.
42 shows to watch.
42 total from season 1 through 6 of my favorite episodes. So we did the first 3 seasons, and then from season 4 to 6, we got season 4 episodes 2, 5, 8, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Then you have season 5. You have episodes 1, 3, 8, 9, 14, 16. These aren't lottery numbers, people. Don't go and play in the lottery. And then season 6, you can basically watch the entire season if you want. That was the strongest season in the series. But I would say 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you watch 7, 8, 9, then 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, you'll be really happy. So, obviously the show got stronger as it went on. And then it just, I'm going to be honest with you. I only liked in season 7. So if we were to, do 7, 8, and 9, 3 years or whatever, I think I would only mention episode 1 of season 7 and maybe Sing Me a Song.
Yeah.
Right. and maybe the mid-season finale. Other than that, I didn't like the rest of the episode. So you could tell, how strong season 6 was when I didn't mention 2 episodes.
Yeah. We'll try to get those
Anyways,
up on the website. Send more to me an email. Or get those posted along with our your playlist there as well for the soundtracks.
definitely, I sure will. I'll get that to you, and then you can, go to Echo 5 Studios website, and you can get all of that good stuff. Along with check out Jay's other shows that he does, and very interesting, and something for everybody there. And we just hope you enjoyed these recaps, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys.